Yes, we can.
Oh, great.
Okay, we're going to get started here. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Town of Fairfield RTM for Monday, December 12th, 2022 to order. Can the clerk please take the roll?
Ed Bateson, Marty Fury, Melissa Longo, Amy Ruggiero, Bill Gerber. On the phone. Who was that? Thank you. Karen McCormick. Cindy Parham. Jeff Steele.
Here.
Alex Durrell. Jeff Galdenzi. Tom Lambert. Sharon Pastilli. Laura Carson. Michelle McCabe. Marcy Spollier.
Here.
Liz Esma. Jennifer Barahona. Josh Garskoff. Joe Siebert. Jay Wolk. Steve Barretts. Hannah Gale. Andrew Graceffa. Lisa Havey. John Kuhn. Mark McDermott. Jill Vergara. Karen Wackerman. Cameron Chiniski. Hank Ferentz. Pamela Iacono. Jim Myers. Christine Brown. Drew Georgiadis. Margaret Horton.
Here.
Kelly Cinto. Ken Astorita. Peter Britton. Brooke Spiracino. Story Tolman.
Thank you, Betsy. Let's all rise for the pledge, please. Okay, for those of you on WebEx, please keep your microphones muted until you're called upon, and if you have a question, please put it in the chat. So item number 2, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that in accordance with a request from the Director of Public Works, an appropriation of $1,750,000 be and hereby is made from the Water Pollution Control Authority, WPCA, Reserve Fund to finance the repair of the primary digester. Both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance have approved this. Can I have a motion to approve? Representative Georgiadis, seconded by Representative Carson. Okay, Mr. Devanzo, and I think we have Mr. Bodie and Mr. Hurley on WebEx, correct? The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Joe Devanzo, 1446 Jennings Lane, Vice Chair of the WPCA.
Okay, so whoever wants to give us a quick breakdown.
Let me give you a
Thanks.
quick is this better? Back in April, we had an issue with our primary digester down at the plant. What happened is pressure built up inside, and it actually blew the 45-ton top off its bolts. There are 12 bolts that hold the top in place. We proceeded to go out to bid to both clean and repair the digester. In August, we received one bid for $2.7 million. We rejected that bid as being too high. What happened next is we decided that we needed to clean the digester out first and then determine what the damage was, if any. We knew the 10 bolts of the 12 needed repair, but we didn't know about the internal repair until we cleaned the digester out. So we bid again just the clean out. We had a bid back in October for $630,000. We had 3 bids, actually. The bid we accepted, was $630,000. The work was done, and it was completed October 23rd for the amount of $531,000. So it was a little less expensive than the bid. We then proceeded to get some people inside the digester, or at least observing the damage, and we have 4 individual items that need to be repaired. One is some of the piping inside the digester was damaged. Two is the liner was damaged. It's been decided that we're not going to replace the liner. Engineers have said that it's not necessary. We're simply going to pull the liner out, and that's part of the repair. Part of the repair is to get those 10, lift the top, crib it, move it back in place, and repair the 10 bolts of the 12 that did get damaged. And now we're also going to put some new valves and gauges up on top so we could get a better idea of monitoring the pressure inside. I think that's about it. Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have Mr. Bodie, the plant superintendent, and Mr. Hurley, the town engineer, on the line. I don't know if they want to add anything. One more thing that I did forget, and they always remind me, we did have an adjuster. We did receive a claim. The town received a check. It'll eventually wind up with the WPCA for offsetting these expenses. It was for $1 million from the insurance company. The adjuster's fee of that was $52,000, so we have a net of $948,000 to go against both the repair and the clean-out, depending on how we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Devanzo. Mr. Hurley or Mr. Bodie, do you have any further comments?
Nope, I think Joe did an adamant job on summarizing that. I just want to thank everybody for holding this special meeting and coming here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, the urgency, this is Bill Hurley. The urgency, from what I understand, is that we've been getting a lot of complaints about this, and we hope to resolve it. The bid opening is going to be December 15th, so we'll have the exact amounts of the, at least the bid proposal, the contract bids.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to the body for questions. Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Welcome, Mr. Devanzo and everybody. I'd like a little bit more detail. As Mr. Hurley said, this is, there's urgency. It blew in April, and it's December. I'm a District 9 RTM member. My constituents have suffered. The smell has been horrible. They've worried about their health. And I still don't understand why it has taken close to, I don't know, what is it, 9 months to get to this point? And can you elaborate on how many bids we have? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to let Mr. Hurley answer the beginning part of the question. I'll answer the last piece of it.
Thank you. Mr. Hurley?
Actually, I was going to pass it off to John for...
Okay, it's a bouncing ball here. Mr. Bodie.
We had the failure April 24th. Obviously, we got engineers in within a couple of weeks to look at it. There was an insurance claim filed by the town to our insurance company. So that took a few months to get them in to inspect and investigate. So by the time they were done with that and we got the bid together, the first bid was open on August 4th, excuse me. And we reviewed it, rejected it, and ended up rebidding, and we got the cleaning bid awarded and started by October 11th. So waiting for the insurance company to come in and do their investigation and that kind of work is what delayed us. And plus the high bid and rejecting it.
Thank you. So you cannot get a bid until the insurance company has gone out to the location? I would think you could do them simultaneously.
I think we were looking to get a price, and that I can't answer. I don't know why we didn't try and bid it, but I think we were trying to find out, A, how much it was going to be and where we were going to get the money from.
But you knew it had to be repaired, so the delay is very disappointing. I mean, it really caused a lot of angst, anxiety I, I just don't believe that it has to take this long. So I'm glad we're here, and obviously I'm going to vote for it, but I think we need to look at the process and, get the bids, and then maybe you select them. I mean, the bids are going to come in as the bids are going to come in. It has nothing to do with the insurance reimbursement. That's one thing. The bids are a separate thing, and you're not going to not fix it. So I hope that there's like a learning curve in this situation, and it moves more quickly. Thank you.
Drew, let me just go through one more piece of information. The smell really was exacerbated by an attempt to fix the smell. Through the summer months and up until probably September, it was a normal plant smell. What happened is, as we tried to introduce a chemical to alleviate the smell, and the smell, I still believe, and that's why I asked the engineers to take the question, I still believe the smell was caused by, in effect, introducing a chemical into digester 2 to try to alleviate some of the issues. We had at one point the hatch on digester 2, the hatch on the primary digester, and the cleaning crew that was taking the product, I'll use the proper term, the product out of the digester 1 and putting it into a truck. So some of the smell, most of the smell didn't occur until the fall. I don't think we had experienced any complaints, and I could be wrong. I hadn't heard of any until almost October myself, but that doesn't mean that the plant wasn't getting any complaints. So
I agree with that. Thank you for the clarification. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Drew. I think, Mr. Bodie, could you just mute while you're not speaking? I think it's you. Somebody's got a little noise back here in the room.
I do have one follow-up question. So in this 9 months, since it blew the lid off, has the digester been offline? Have we been incurring any additional costs because this digester has it not been working, or it's just been working but the smell has been spewing?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Bodie, please.
Mr. Bodie, could you repeat that, please?
It's not operating at all. We've been using the secondary digester, so it's been offline, not been in use. We have incurred a little bit extra cost with chemical and a little bit of overtime, but we kind of fine-tuned it, streamlined it, and we're getting better.
So there have been no additional costs to the town through the fact that this digester has been offline for 9 months?
No, just a little bit out of the operating budget for chemical and overtime. But that came out of the operating budget.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Representative Pastilli?
Sharon Pastilli, District 3. I'm not sure who these questions are for, so if you don't mind just directing them appropriately, that would be great. Can you explain to me, and I'm sorry if I've somehow missed this, exactly what types of digesters these are, and then what the treatment method is for the sewage waste? I'm leading into a maintenance question, right? So depending on the type of digester it is and the treatment methods that we use, that determines what the typical schedule is for preventative maintenance. So what I'd like to know is what type of digesters are they? What chemicals are we using, and then what's the associated maintenance schedule with that?
The primary digester is anaerobic, which means it's void of oxygen. So it's actually sealed, heated, and mixed. The secondary digester is basically a holding tank. It does allow air in there. It's not mixed. It's just kind of a storage tank and a gas holder. The primary digester should be cleaned every 10 years. Without being able to see in it, it's hard to tell exactly what's in there. It does build up debris over time on the bottom. And the secondary is not as much of a junk gatherer, but that will be cleaned every 10 years as well.
And John, that it's been cleaned out, now the contractors can see exactly what the inside looks like, while before it was, quote, under sewage or underwater.
Well, yeah, there was 600,000 gallons of sludge in there. You couldn't see a thing. So it is right to the bottom. It's, you can see it all.
And so just to follow up, the valves now that we're putting on the lid of number one, are those going to give us fair warning now when there's a problem? Like, are there any kind of, you know how Johnson Controls comes in and they like, put their fancy measurement tools on these kinds of civil engineering projects so that we have a heads up? Is there an opportunity here to perhaps like bring in an outside contractor for some preventative
Sharon,
steps?
I will answer your question as the non-technical person. Included in the monies we're looking for are gauges and valves, valves to release and gauges to measure the pressure in the tanks. I'll turn it over through you, Mr. Chair, to our town engineer, to Mr. Bodie, to explain the technical part of it more directly.
The new pressure relief valve is for gas release. That'll be brand new, up to date to the current standards. There will also be a sonar type gauge on the top that will measure the distance from the cover to the level of sludge. If that ever becomes a problem and there's a tight window, it will shut everything down. We won't pump, we won't mix, and not have this problem again.
Okay, you had a second part of your question, what chemicals were used. The product is, the gas that we're smelling is hydrogen sulfide. So John, if you can talk about the first chemical we used and then the second chemical.
The first chemical was recommended by somebody in the business. It's an oxidizer. It's supposed to take care of hydrogen sulfide. They assured us they would help with the smell. We started using the chemical. That has a pH of 1.5 or so. It's very acidic. That ended up changing the makeup of our sludge from a 7 pH to a 4. Once we hit that 4, it caused all kinds of foaming in the secondary digester, and it did smell 10 times worse than before. So we stopped using that chemical. It took us a couple of weeks, 3 weeks to get it out of the system, stop foaming. And through the process, we let it lie. We're trying another one right now, which is an all natural. It's not an oxidizer. It's a neutral pH. We've been adding it about a week. To my nose, it smells better at the plant. I don't know if that transfers to everybody else. You have a little more sensitive to the smell than I do, but I think we're on the right track with what we're using right now. We do have a couple other ones in the wings to try if this one doesn't work out. So we're looking at other options. We're also looking at a kind of a dry fog for around the plant, and there's also a carbon filter we're looking at. We're just waiting on pricing that can be directed right to where the smell kind of gets generated to knock it out if need be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pastillo. Representative Carson?
Hi, Laura Carson, District 4. I just need a little clarification. I watched the last meeting, and you brought up the fact, I just want to talk about process. You talked about the fact that the first bid that came in for the cleaning, I think in the summer.
It was a combined bid, cleaning and repair.
Okay.
We knew at least of the external repair, the bolts.
But you said that, unfortunately, someone had told the person who was offering the bid, they came in, they said, was anyone else bidding on the project? And they said, no. And you were upset about that fact, that you're not supposed to tell people. That's not the process normally, is it? And why did that happen? And has that been?
I've been told that it's been corrected. What happened, what I understood had happened, which was what upset me, was the morning of the bids, somebody walked in and at 9 a.m., the bids due at 11, and said, has anybody bid? And what happened was nobody had bid, but somebody had indicated to this person. At 5 minutes to 11, this person came in with that, what we considered a very high bid. That typically is not the process that should happen. I've asked, it was done in the town somewhere, I've asked, and I've been told it's been corrected, it won't happen again.
Okay, so that's not the normal process, just right?
Absolutely
Okay.
not. You
And
don't
that's why
want
you
your
rejected the bid?
What we count
Okay.
on is multiple bidders bidding the job to get the best price. We don't have to accept it, but we're looking for the best price.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carson. Representative Zesma?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esmer, District 4. Gentlemen, and pardon my back for those on remote, want to follow up on something in the backup. I believe I read where the life of a digester is about 25 years. Can anyone tell me exactly when this one was purchased and installed?
Mr. Bodie? Bring him back. We need him now.
This digester was built in the 50s when the plant was built. It was rehabbed during our upgrade in 2000. Life expectancy in the backup is 25 years is just my way of saying that the internal components need to be looked at after 25 years, the mixing system and what have you. When we clean it every 10 years, of course, we're going to look on the inside and see the condition of the mixing system, the condition of the piping that's in there, the pressure relief valve. So my 25-year life expectancy is basically the internal components of the digester. The tank itself should be good for 50 years plus.
So with these, with the cleaning and repairs, we can expect some years left on this current one versus replacement?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative McCabe?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michelle McCabe, District 4. I just have a series of questions. The first one is when the bids went out after the digester broke in April, was the bid for repair only, or was it for repair and cleaning?
It was for cleaning and repair, both.
And my second question is, why do you suppose that I mean, technically, it sounds like we really didn't get any bids. So August comes, and the only bid that existed was this one that sort of came in 5 minutes before consideration. Do you have an understanding as to why there weren't any other companies bidding on the project?
I think the reason is there was a lot of unknowns. The tank was full of sludge. You could not see what was actually wrong and to what degree. So it's very hard to put a number on a lot of unknowns. So I think the one company kind of threw a number out there to see if it would stick, and I think now we'll get more bids because you can see and we know what needs to be repaired.
Right, and basically, because the bid was so high, it was, the reason the bid was so high, we felt, was because they didn't know what they were going to run into inside. They could see the external, the top, but they didn't know what else was going to be needed to be done. The cleaning part of it, they were a little high with their 600, but 700, I think, on that one bid. But other than that, it was just the unknowns, which made sense to rebid it with the two pieces once it was cleaned.
Is there any reason why the first response wasn't to just clean the tank and then maybe follow that up with bidding on what was discovered once it was clean? If there's an explanation as to why at some point the decision wasn't made to simply start with cleaning the tank?
Well, I'm not going to talk operationally, but hindsight is always 20/20. If we knew that, if that bid had come in at $1.7 million, that bid would have been accepted and we would have had everything cleaned and repaired. Unfortunately, it came in too high which was an operational decision, a process decision that was made. Hindsight tells us next time we'll break it down into pieces. Learning opportunity, I guess, is the way to say it.
Sometimes, you know, you do that and you break it down, it costs more if you have it in phases, and sometimes, and you're better off doing it as a lump sum or in one big package. But sometimes breaking it up makes sense, and like Joe had just mentioned, that you know, hindsight for this particular situation, yeah, I think it's better to split it now.
Yeah, just to clarify, because again, it sounded like the unknown that was associated with a tank full was really one of the delaying factors, it sounds like.
Let me point out one thing. It's the smell that seems to be the major issue. We did not have a smell when the digester went in April. I mean, the smell was, I introduced, when we introduced the chemical, when we opened the hatches up to clean them, that's when it really got bad. So it really wasn't the first part of the bid process that was, it was flawed and it took a long time, but it was more the way we went to fix the smell, and we exacerbated the problem.
Yeah, the other thing too, Joe, is if we did it all in one, we would have a contractor to clean and do the repairs. If we separate it, yeah, which we ended up doing, but the cleaning is one bid process, then the next bid process occurs, you know, a couple of months or 3 months later, and that's why you're seeing this delay from April as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative McCabe. Representative Steele, I believe you have a question.
I just had a question. Is one of the outputs of the digester is a biogas, right?
Correct. When the primary digester is working properly, yes.
What is the biogas used for? Is it for electricity or heat or?
We actually use it to mix the digester. We actually use it to heat the digester. We also heat a few buildings with it. And if there's any excess, it gets flared off.
Okay. So the heat now has to come from another source, obviously, for the buildings.
Yes, it's only 2 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
The main focus of the gas that's produced is to heat the digester. So it actually makes the gas to heat itself.
Yep. That's all I had.
Thank you, Representative Steele. Representative Horton on WebEx.
Hi, Margaret Horton from District 9. With the primary digester being offline and everything going to the backup digester at this point, the longer that we go without the primary digester, does that put us in a situation that there's sort of undue capacity on the backup and could cause problems with essentially the backup digester doing more work than it's set up to be?
No, right. To call it a digester is kind of a far-fetched label to it. It's more of a holding tank because it doesn't get heated and it doesn't get mixed. It's basically a storage tank. So whatever we pump in per day, we take out. So it's just kind of an ebb and flow, and we kind of keep it even. So we're after it, we're ahead of it. So it shouldn't come into play where it would be overloaded at all.
Okay, when you say whatever comes in then goes out, where, since we don't have the digester, what's happening? Where is it going?
We're pumping sludge into it, and then we're taking sludge out. We press it, and then we compost it. Okay. Just real quick, if the primary digester is in play, we pump into the primary digester. Whatever goes into that gets the thinner stuff goes out into the holding tank, and then we pull out of the holding tank.
Okay.
So right now we're just going in and out of the holding tank.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Horton. Does anybody else have a question besides Representative Georgiadis, since she asked already? Representative Brown.
Christine Brown, District 9. I've been to some of the WPCA meetings on this topic, and this sewage treatment plant is in my district. I've been in touch with several of the residents, and I just wanted to, I don't have a question, I have a comment. May I make a comment? there's a lot of terminology that's used in this, really nice terminology. I mean, what people are smelling is raw sewage. It's pretty gross. It's disgusting. And I think the neighbors have a very legitimate complaint. One of them said that in the 20 years she's been living there, it's never been that bad. Another one said in the 14 years she's been living there, it's never been that bad. When the weather was nicer in October, people weren't able to keep their windows open. If they walk their dogs or go jogging, it's kind of gross. It makes them gag. You can smell it on the playground at Sherman School. You can smell it at Chentro when the wind is right. You can definitely smell it on the beach, and it goes all the way over to Colonial Drive, which is, you know, heading towards South Benson. So it's a really wide geography that this smell is permeating. So it has been going on a long time, and I just want to, I'll be voting yes on this, and I just want to urge everyone else to do the same, because it's a serious issue. It's urgent, and I think it's really a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Anybody else? Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. One question, one comment. If they couldn't give a bid and we couldn't get bidders because they couldn't see the error, did the bidders actually say, look, you know, I can't give you a bid because there's sludge in there, right? And that took you from April to August to figure out? I think that's negligence. I think that you should figure that out on its own, like that you have to be able to see into the, you know, into the digester in order to get it fixed. And I totally disagree, with all due respect, that it's not just the fact that, oh, it got bad in October. These things need to be repaired quickly. You have, you know, it's because it couldn't get repaired that you put the chemicals in and subjected a lot of our citizens, people in my district, to a completely unhealthy and repulsive, like, air quality. So please, in the future, be proactive, figure it out, because it's been a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. We have no, well, Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2. I'm going to ask a question just because we've never talked about this before and it's interesting, and we have a little time, I think. So,
oh, we don't. Our committee meeting was supposed to start 5 minutes ago.
Sorry.
But
well, quick question then. Along the lines of what Representative Steele asked about the byproduct, is the byproduct of the sludge also something of value? It was mentioned it was composted, but is that sold?
The sludge we compost is sold, yes, correct.
Now, John, to be fair, we sell it to Denali, or they sell it after they've stored it?
We Care Denali stores it. Another company, AgriSource, markets it and sells it.
I'm sorry, we make money off it or not?
We make very little, about $15,000 a year.
Okay. Okay. And so if it's not the sludge that is going directly currently into, you know, into the digester, which is not being digested, into the number one, is that saleable as well?
Yes. What we're putting through the compost right now, it still meets the guidelines for it, and it is marketable as a Class A.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you, Representative Gerber. We don't have any public here, and I don't know if there's any on WebEx for comments or questions. Comments. Okay, seeing none. I just have a question. If we approve this in a couple of minutes here, when are we thinking this thing is going to be fixed?
Okay, so we've changed the process to try to get all three boards to approve before we actually have the bids. As Bill Hurley indicated earlier, we're getting the bids opened on Thursday of this week. As soon as we award it, it's as quickly as the contractor could get it going. We anticipate, and Bill, you correct me if I'm wrong, we are anticipating about 3 months for completion?
I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to check the bid on that. I wasn't involved with the bid, Joe. Sorry.
But in answer to your question, it'll, as fast as the contractor can get going.
That does
We-
seem
We do,
reasonable,
we
though.
do need a fairly large crane brought over to lift that 45-ton top off it. That, obviously, we've got in the bid, I mean, it's a winter bid, we've got winter cement issues, we've got some other issues, but it'll all be resolved with the bid documents.
I mean, that's my concern. We're not going to push it off because we have a problem pouring concrete in February or something like that.
No, our engineers have indicated we want winter concrete. It's got to be cured quickly.
Okay, and the bids will be open for how long, once they're sent out?
They're sent out now. They'll be opened on Thursday.
Open on Thursday, okay. And would you consider speed over cost instead of cost?
Typically, the commission doesn't get involved with the process of opening the bids and deciding. That's between the purchasing agent of the town director, and the town engineer. So I can't answer that question from the commission point of view.
Okay.
We can definitely speed it up on our end. No, we, again, everybody's made an effort here to get this out as quick as possible. The purchasing agent knows that. I just sent him an email seeing if he would reply. I'll talk to him tomorrow and just remind him the bids are, I mean, I'm sure he knows, but that we can get this as soon as possible, check any references and get it as soon as possible, have the town attorney, and, you know, usually the town has to still sign and award the bid. Sometimes that takes a little bit of process, but I would think everybody involved on the town side knows about this, and John and I will certainly remind them.
What if the bids all come in over $1.75 million?
Well, John, I can answer that to a little bit of it, just based on experiences, is that we would hire them, because it has to be done. We would hire the contractor, and then we'd have to go back for additional money. We are hoping that there's already a slight contingency in this, and that won't happen. But, you know, stranger things have happened, especially recently, you know, with some of the prices. Some things are less, some things are more. We would give him the go-ahead to start, and then have to go back for additional money.
Okay, because,
Out of the WPCA, correct, John?
That's correct.
right.
Yeah.
Well, we rejected one bid for being too high already, so we can't let that happen again. So I'm going to call the vote. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr.
everyone.
Vanzo. Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Thank you, Mr. Bodie. So I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Have a motion, Representative Spolier, seconded by Representative Carson. Thank you, everybody. Yep. Okay, we're going to hop right into the RTM committee meetings of Monday, December 12th. Sorry we're running about 10 minutes behind, but that special meeting was important to get that done for the WPCA. So we don't have to do the pledge. We've done that already tonight. And our first presenter tonight will be Carolyn Trabucco for the Joint Retirement Investment Board. So she is here and ready to go.
And if I believe I push, right, and hold that down. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Carolyn Trabucco. I'm the chair of the JRIB. We are the combined boards of the Police and Fire Pension Board and the employees.
Meetings of Monday, December 12th. Sorry we're running about 10 minutes behind, but that special meeting is important to get that done for the WPCA. Karen Wackerman, you have to not sign in as host. Next? No.
That was easy.
I think we can go.
Are we
No?
good?
Are we good to go?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
we got rid of her.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm here representing the JRIB. We didn't have anything. I had called ahead and asked if I should prepare anything in particular. What I thought I would do is kind of give you an overview similar to the one we report to quarterly to the Board of Finance, and then give you an opportunity to ask any questions. What I'll focus on is give you a sense of the market value of the funds, the performance of the funds, the allocation of the funds, and then recent changes and updates to our board and our activity. It's important to note that 2 years ago, we changed the way that we manage the investment funds. We moved to an OCIO model, which is an outsourced chief investment officer, OCIO model, and away from a consultant model. And broadly speaking, what that did is that brought an OCIO. We chose Vanguard, and they perform as a co-fiduciary with us. They manage the portfolios, they watch them daily, rather than us as independent and volunteers coming forward to a board, looking at something perhaps, coming to something late, if anything that needs attention. So having Vanguard for 2 years has been terrific. We've been using monthly performance and meetings with them. We're going to be changing that to quarterly because every other one of their OCIO clients uses a quarterly performance. And we were the only ones holding on because we just wanted to really get comfortable with the process. The presentation material that you might have in your packet was the one submitted to the Board of Finance and relates back to our October 26th meeting. It's the Vanguard packet. It's very thorough. There's a lot of market information in that, some of which now seems, in today's volatile market, seems very dated. But it's very, they're very thorough in their approach. So I'm going to start with the pension funds. So this would be market value as of September 30th, 2022. The market value of the pension funds was $390 million. The performance for the September quarter was down 5%. We've made a fair bit of that back up. If I relate it back to perhaps something more relevant to you, I'll give you the year-end performance numbers. Fiscal year-end, June 30, 2022, we were down 8.9%. Fiscal 21, ending June 30, 2021, we were up 25.6%. So we had a phenomenal year. We've given some back with the market volatility, and we feel like we're holding our own here this year. The allocation of the pension funds, 50% equities. That split 60-40 between U.S. and non-U.S. 33% is invested into fixed income. That split 70-30 U.S., non-U.S. 8% in real estate and 8.5% in private equity. If I were to characterize the environment, I would have to say it's very challenging, confounding a bit to have stocks and bonds move in a correlated fashion lower this year. If you can imagine, the markets are dealing with inflation, rising interest rates, geopolitical issues, supply chains, China, COVID response. It's pretty much been a thicket to work through. On the OPEB side, which we run in a pretty similar fashion, the market value of those funds as of September 30th was $65.8 million. The performance in September quarter end was similar to pension, down 5%. The fiscal year ending 22, down 8.9%. The fiscal year ending 2021 was up 30%. The allocation of OPEB is a little more aggressive. It's 67% equity. It's split 60-40 U.S., non-U.S. It's 21% allocated toward fixed income, which is split 70-30 U.S., non-U.S. 11% invested in real estate, and 0.2% in private equity. And the reason for that is OPEB recently reached a threshold level where we could allocate toward private equity. Our long-term target is 10% allocation to private equity, but it's going to take several years to get there. So it's a slow process. Same market environment, challenging, pretty unusual with the correlation and the leg lower across all the asset classes. But we feel, we had our meeting last week, and the allocation stands as it is. There were no changes, neither made by Vanguard or by the members of our board. Let me tell you what's going on at the JRIB. First off, the membership is full. We thank you for reappointing Jack Mahoney to our board. We also had the reappointment of Bruce Ryan on the police and fire side. The discount rate, this is super important for what we do because at the JRIB, we deliver a cost to you, a liability, and part of the way we calculate that over the long period of time is through the discount rate. The discount rate's at 6.9%. It was changed during fiscal year 21. It was lowered from 7% to 6.9%. Every July, we have a meeting dedicated to the discount rate where Vanguard provides their mathematical assumptions for us, and our actuary, Milliman, provides their modeling for us as well. And it was of both of their views that 6.9% was the right number. And interestingly, in this period of time, as we start to see rates move up, it's actually really good for the pension funds and for those fixed income allocations. Higher rates kind of helps us get to those long-term numbers and takes a little bit of the stress off kind of your role and the Board of Finance role. We should be able to meet our numbers. We changed our actuary. We did that through an RFP. We moved it to Milliman. We've completed now one full cycle with them, one full year. We're very happy with their work. The Board of Finance is also very happy with their work. And we work separately but together with an actuary. And I'm delighted that the Board of Finance felt that we made a good decision on that. We are moving the pension administrative services over to Milliman as well. This is a 9 to 12 month process. It'll be completed by middle 2023. What this will do for us, it will help professionalize the product and the offering to our pensioners and our retirees. It will provide some automated service. You have an address change, you don't have to call HR at the town anymore. You can enter it onto your account with Milliman. But we'll provide for better communication, easier communication with the pensioners. What it does not do is it does not eliminate the role of the benefits manager at Town Hall. There's still very much a need for face-to-face interaction. A lot of people maybe are not as computer savvy, a little older, retirees, and so you still have a human interface, and we felt that that was super important in this transition. Two other things that we did. We prevailed and won in our lawsuit against Allianz. That was relating to their management of their fund back in 2020 during the COVID pandemic crisis. So those funds have now gone back into the pension funds. And we prevailed in our lead role as a class action plaintiff against Floor in securities litigation. It was a small award, but it was won with the help of our portfolio monitoring service provider, a firm called Pomerantz. And our representative there is a Fairfield resident named Matthew Tuchello. They don't charge a fee for this service. They brought it to us and did the work, and we were happy to be able to prevail. So I want to shout out to a Fairfield resident for helping the JRIB. That's what I have prepared. It's a lot of information, a walk around the JRIB, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any questions? Representative Bateson?
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Ed Bateson, District 1. Thanks for being here, Carolyn. Quick question. You said we switched to a different model, the OCI. What's the impact on the management cost of that? It sounds like we're paying more for talent, so I expect management costs.
No, the cost of going to the OCI model was significantly less than the consultants. I don't have the numbers, the specific numbers, but meaningfully lower than using a consultant. And I think in part that's because we're not picking specific securities or funds or hedge funds, right? The Vanguard product is where we're invested across the whole market. So when we're invested in the Vanguard U.S. equity, we're invested across the markets, passive. Same with the fixed income product. And those passive investment vehicles are a lot lower cost.
Okay. Didn't expect that, but I like that answer. Who was our old actuary?
We used Hooker and Holcomb for a very long time, 20 years, 15 or 20 years.
I remember that name. Now that we switched to Milliman, I know when we do the analysis, the pension analysis, there's a lot of assumptions under, retiree longevity, so forth and so on. Have they kicked the tires on the assumption we've used for years under Hooker? Are you hearing any rumblings coming out of their organization like, hey, we're not happy with some of these assumptions because we changed those assumptions, it tweaks numbers. So are they happy with what we were using, or are you seeing bad news on the horizon?
No, nothing but good news. They were actually they were satisfied with the numbers and the assumptions. We had already moved over to the public service mortality tables, pub tables. Public sector employees oftentimes live longer than private sector employees, and that made a difference to the pension math. The transition went seamlessly, at least to our visibility, and we didn't pick up anything that would be a cause for concern or a decision made in an underlying assumption that we would want to investigate further.
Okay. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but your July meeting, we're at 6.9 with the increase in interest rates. What are you hoping for, or what are you seeing?
Good question. We actually went through that in this in the December 6th meeting for the JRIB. Vanguard worked some numbers for us, and the way that we're presently allocated, you run the math forward and then you discount back, would actually give us room to raise the discount rate. We're outperforming the discount rate. Yeah.
Thank you, Representative Bateson. Any other questions from the body? Representative Garskoff?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mrs. Trabucco. So can you remind me, please, and all of us, in I believe it was fiscal 21, we had excellent results, and there was also allocation change, I think, leading into that and leading out of that. Do I have that right? That we kind of, after that successful run, the JRIB kind of backed out a little bit and stepped a little bit to the sidelines, that maybe we all wish we had done the same thing. Can you walk me through that, please?
Yeah, and in hindsight, you never do enough. Yes, so running into the pandemic, we allocated more heavily toward risky assets, toward equities, and away from fixed income. Over the past, maybe 12 months, we've taken some of that off, and we've reallocated toward private equity, a little more toward private equity, and toward fixed income. We are not market timers. I want to be super clear about this, guys. This is long term. We are focused on the long term. We take the fiduciary responsibility here really seriously. We're not traders. We're not going to try to play markets or trade. It was the right time to make an allocation change, and it was one made in concert with the board and with Vanguard in the OCIO role.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Garskoff. Representative Pastilli?
Sharon Pastilli, District 3. I had a question. Since we've migrated to Vanguard, do they have a different methodology in terms of their approach to investing and how they advise us? Do they look at our actual retiree population and expected retiree population and then, project like what our liabilities are based on, the ages and the actuarial tables? And then, how often do they look at our population and how much of an impact does that have on the investing decisions?
So what you're referring to is an experience study off of our population set instead of relying on a broader population set. That is something that will come up next year in 2023. The cadence has been every couple of years. You do that as a matter of kind of good pension hygiene. You survey your own population. But they are relying in part on the last experience set. I don't remember in my head when it was done. It was done a couple of years ago, and the statistical tables.
And then will we know for those individuals who took the VRIP, like are we going to be, keeping track of the impact that those individuals had on our increased costs so that we know what this ultimately is going to cost us as a town?
Unclear to me if that's something that if the JRIB will be doing, right, as the investment board. Is it being tracked? I hope so. I don't know. I don't see any backtracking to it or from it, and I wouldn't in my role.
But there would be an increase by increasing those individuals to the pool, there is an increase to our liability. So you'd think that incrementally we would know what that is, because what we're going to try to do is see what the impact of the VRIP is on the town, so the next time we want to implement one of these plans, we know what our ROI was on it.
Sure, but there's a whole lot more layers of math. What was the age of the people who took part of the VRIP? Were they already, were they close to retirement age? Were they well away from it? That's going to have a big effect on the numbers. And any other number of kind of factors. We don't go into that level of per participant, plan participant data. We look much more broadly at kind of the sum totals as they come.
More like a weighted average pool.
More like a weighted average pool.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Representative Pistilli. Any other questions, comments? Representative Gerber.
Hey, Carolyn. Thanks for being here. Bill Gerber, District 2. That mortality reserve that you voted to include based on experience, is that fully in at this point, do you know?
So the pub tables that we did, so the experience table comes in, gets picked up, and then I would imagine mathematically you'd have a bit of a tracking error, right? We kind of move away from it because we're not doing an experience study every year. They're expensive. And it's not recommended to us to do one every year. The pub tables, the mortality pub tables, get lifted into the assumptions every year. We're using the most recent public service pub tables, which is a blend across police, fire, teachers, town administrators.
So 2.5 years ago, you voted to increase the reserve by something like $3 million or something
So
like that?
it was March of 2020. That was a very busy meeting. That was the Allianz meeting. That was the pub tables vote. We elected to characterize the pension funds actuarially by using the more conservative look at longevity in the pub tables.
Right.
Those were immediately put into kind of the next actuarial report.
Okay.
Again, so my role isn't kind of how does it get funded from the town side. It's how do I characterize the liability accurately so that we can make the right decision regarding the discount rate mechanism and provide that information over to the Board of Finance in the town.
I sort of remember the frequency of doing it's not, the reserve isn't updated every year, it's updated every 2 years. So at this point, it would be 2 years and it would be fully in.
And it would be fully in.
Okay, and my other question, can you disclose the Allianz recovery?
I wish. I'm not allowed to.
Okay.
We're beholden to agreements with them. We were able to get our investment returned.
So that goes back into the return, of the fund return, so it's already in this return that we're seeing? Okay.
That has gone in.
And on the VRIP, I sort of recall the discussion with Hooker and Holcomb that they do their modeling by person, I guess it makes sense. So I guess we could get that work done if, once, with the Milliman, we could compare individuals probably, but there would be like a year difference or whatever, like sort of the last Hooker and Holcomb valuation and the first Milliman valuation, just if we want to know the cost. I don't know. It's just a thought.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know if you could isolate that by comparing the two reports.
Right, that wouldn't be, that would be probably a discussion with Milliman, I guess. Oh, the other question I had was, I remember you did a fairly sizable switch from equity, out of equity into fixed income. I thought it was like something like a 5% change or something like that. But
It was.
oh, okay.
It
So
was.
you said a little, but that's actually monumental. You know, that was really prescient. You know, and was like that a term structure that was like, was it more allocated towards shorter term? Or?
You know, again, with Vanguard,
You don't do that.
with Vanguard, we don't do that.
Okay.
It's the total market exposure. And
Right,
and it's their kind of total fixed income market exposure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, we were not specifically picking out bond issues.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Are our WebEx people still with us? Oh, I just see ghosts. Names without faces. Empty chairs and empty tables from Les Mis. Okay, good. Does anybody on WebEx have any questions or comments? That sounds like a negative. Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hi, Carolyn. Thanks for being here. So I can recall sitting in a number of Board of Finance meetings where people were rather distressed about our commodities investments. Now, unless it's folded into some aggregate number here, I think we divested.
No commodities. No commodities exposure. We've made a decision not to carry forward any hedge fund positions either. That got rolled into the equity exposure on a passive side through Vanguard.
So under the new system, so everybody understands kind of the synergy between the board and Vanguard, when and by whom are the decisions made to change the allocations, say from equities to fixed income?
They're made in the boardroom in the JRIB meetings. Vanguard does not make them on their own. They're done in concert with us after discussion with the members. So, and as of yet, we haven't had to do, I mean, monumental, I don't know, a 500 basis point allocation switch. I guess it was big, it wasn't enough. It's something that we bring up with every meeting, whether anyone wants to address making an allocation change. And if something were to come up, any of the JRIB board members or Vanguard can bring it to the table. We can request a meeting and we can host a meeting. Okay.
Great, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Woke.
Jay Woke, District 5. Hi, Carolyn. Good to see you again. My question is, the reason, and I'm not questioning the reason, just want to understand, for switching from Holcomb to Milliman?
To Milliman? The reason was one of hygiene, one of trying to have good hygiene. I think it's important that, you know, periodically you make a change in your service providers and your vendors. The board elected to do an RFP to see what else was out there, to see what offerings, what cost, what if there was a comprehensive solution that made more sense for us. We had lost track of when we originally hired Hooker and Holcomb. It had been a really long time. Estimates were 20 years. And so it seemed, it just seemed a right and appropriate thing to do. We focused on the attributes that any of the actuaries could bring to us. We allowed Hooker and Holcomb to bid, and they did. The subcommittee of the JRIB presented forth 3 options, and the JRIB voted as a board. And if I recall, it was a unanimous vote. That Milliman's offer is just simply superior. Their level of communication, their support was just a very differentiated product.
So it was time.
It was time.
So one more thing, I don't mean to bring this, I don't know whether this pertains to, well, I guess it does, but this has nothing to do when you became chairwoman, this is way back. and not to bring up this crazy person's name who actually hurt our town, you know, the Madoff thing, we, you know, when that investment was going on, it seemed like nobody was following up, you know, with what was going on with that, whether it was real or wasn't real. I heard rumors that people were saying things that you should check. But I'm just saying, we're in a place right now that I don't think that ever can happen, right? Again, we're all, with you there and, you know, everybody else on the board following up. I don't think we can have something like that happen.
May it never happen. I think anytime you deal with something that's a financial instrument, fraud can always happen, and it's meant to deceive. And Madoff was a fraud that was meant to deceive. And we were not, as a town, we weren't the only victims of the Madoff fraud years ago. That said, this predates my involvement on the JRIB. I believe that the former chair of the JRIB and the members of that JRIB, who've all termed off due to, you know, serving fully as long as they were allowed to, I think they did a phenomenal job. I think they organized the JRIB. I think they brought a new level of professional around the table, and I think they brought a lot of oversight to the JRIB. I believe that with the movement to the OCIO model with Vanguard, we've taken that even one step further, that we've really kind of begun to really professionalize the investment management side of the JRIB. Does that mean that we're foolproof? No, we're human. But I do believe that there is a great amount of attention that's put on this, and I believe that we are properly aligned where we're at now.
Thank you, and you have wonderful people on your board. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we have great people on our board.
Thank you, Representative Volk. Anybody else? Yep, Representative Brown.
Christine Brown, District 9. This is a very basic question, but prior to the switch to Vanguard and the OCI model, were the funds actively managed?
Yes, but not by us.
Right.
Okay. So it was a consultant model.
Right.
That had a long relationship, a very good relationship with Callan, consulting firm, who would bring forth ideas for funds that the JRIB could invest in. And they themselves ran a very rigorous process. They would select based upon criteria that was kind of best-in-class criteria among pension funds like ours. They'd bring it down to a handful of funds who would come to us and present in person. They'd present their history, and then out of that, the JRIB would vote which funds to go with. I don't know the number of funds that were invested. It's clearly more than what we have now. The decision was made, I think, to one in consideration of cost, that it would be something that we would be well suited to have a lower cost, passive, investment exposure across the broader indexes, and to bring up bring Vanguard in as co-fiduciary.
So they were a consultant, but the decisions were being made by the board.
The decisions are made by the board.
Yeah.
In consultation with the consultants.
And so when you switch to a passive strategy, was the thinking that not obviously it would be lower cost, but you would still get the same return?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Anybody else? Going once, twice, three times. Thank you, Carolyn. Appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys. Happy holidays. See you.
Okay, Harbor Management Report will be next week. 370 Quincy Street purchase. Mr. Barnhart, welcome. Come on down.
Good evening. Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm here on behalf of the Affordable Housing Committee to present and ask for your authorization to proceed with the purchase acquisition of 376 Quincy. It's part of the Parkview Commons development, or the former Navy housing site. It is contiguous or in line with two other parcels that we have acquired within the past year as part of the same development. As you may recall, we're attempting to do a multi-year phased redevelopment of the site to replace the existing units and both raise the first floor elevation to comply with current FEMA flood compliance requirements, as well as increase the number of affordable home ownership units within this development. These are deed-restricted units. They continue to be deed-restricted affordable home ownership units. This particular unit is in foreclosure. It was originally scheduled for foreclosure sale this fall. We asked the committee if they would consider rescheduling that to give us time to present the potential acquisition of this site to various town boards, which they agreed to do. So the sale is scheduled for January 14th of 2023. We have discussed that with both the committee and other creditors. The town is one of the creditors on this particular site. And this, as I may have mentioned before, was presented to the Affordable Housing Committee, which voted not only to recommend the acquisition, but authorize use of Housing Trust Fund monies for that acquisition at their meeting. Subsequently, the Board of Selectmen also unanimously authorized the purchase and use of Housing Trust Fund monies for acquisition at its meeting of October 17th. And lastly, I presented this to the Town Plan and Zoning Commission under Connecticut General Statutes 8-24. Anytime the town is considering the acquisition or sale of a town property, that needs to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review. They've, again, I think in your packet included a favorable recommendation from that commission, which considered it at their meeting of November 15th. So it's before you now. Again, we've to date acquired 4 other properties within the development. 2 of these properties are contiguous to this particular unit at 376. It would be our intent upon hopefully acquisition to bundle these together and seek through an RFQ process a development partner similar to what the process we went through with 244 Greenfield Street to redevelop the site. All the lots that we have acquired to date, 2 of which are still continue to be occupied by holdover tenants, 2 are vacant. They're all 9,000 plus square foot lots in a Residence B zone, so they're conforming duplex lots. We would hope to at least consider duplex or potentially triplex if we can get the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider that as part of the redevelopment process. So with that, I think that's a summary, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. Any questions? Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Hi, Mark. How are you? Thank you for this. That area needs some work, and it needs a little brought into FEMA compliance. So I think it's fantastic. I do have a question. So you, I think you addressed it, but I'm not sure if I understood. So the lots are currently 2-family zone?
They are conforming duplex building lots, correct.
Because they're single-family currently, right?
They are currently single-family homes, yes.
Okay, so they're currently single-family homes, zoned for 2-family homes, and you're potentially going to get request 3 families, and that would triple the number of affordable housing stock. Can you remind me, does this stock apply uniformly across the town, or are you required by the state to have affordable housing spread out across the town equally?
I don't think there's any requirement by the state that it be dispersed throughout town. I think that's generally our overall approach, to see if we can create affordable housing opportunities throughout town, wherever the opportunity might present themselves. In this case, back in 2004, we had an opportunity to acquire the property from the U.S. government. At the time, the decision was made to deed restrict 22 of the units as affordable home ownership. We'd like to continue that, preserve what we have, but also build upon that if we can, and address the longstanding flood compliance issues that really came to the fore in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. So, part of what we want to do is make sure that we're not putting people in untenable positions where they can't fix the problem from a flood compliance standpoint, because we have resale restrictions in place. So the cost to do that, to elevate the homes to comply with FEMA requirements is greater than what the equity value of the property would be under our existing restrictive covenants. So that suggests that, as these units become available, and we're trying to work with people when they're available, when they're ready to move on to the next phase of their lives and put them up for sale. That would be our overall approach, to see if at that point in time we can reacquire them, do the necessary work to comply, but also look to see if we can increase the number of units there as well.
And again, thank you. I've lived in this district for 31 years, and when my kids attended Sherman School, that those homes which were occupied by Coast Guard families definitely added to the affordable housing, or the sort of middle income or lower middle income, as a lot of military families are lower middle income, sadly. And it really added to the sort of just the overall feel of Sherman School. So this will not be a change for the neighborhood. And I just wanted to mention that today. It's not adding something that didn't exist. It's just extending something that has always been part of the fabric of this district. So I just want to thank you for your hard work.
Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4. Hey, Mark, good to see you. So if you could just clarify, I think I read in the backup, this is an 8-month-old appraisal, and there's some condition issues, so the final price is contingent on or pending an update?
The court authorized or asked for an appraisal to determine what the market value is, to determine whether or not there was sufficient equity to cover what is owed to the primary mortgagee and other creditors, and there is. I have my own. I think the appraisal is a very conservative one from the standpoint that the acquisition that we see, it's compliant with our resale restrictions, but given what we've recently acquired within the development, it's a little bit on the high side given the condition of this particular home. So we would hope that that would be the upper limit of what we might expect to pay for the property. But that's, I guess, part of the foreclosure sale process. But we have sufficient funds to cover up to the appraised amount.
But it's an actual bid process?
It is a bid process, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Representative Iacono.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Pam Iacono, District 8, through you to Mr. Barnhart. 2 of the properties are vacant. They've been vacant since 2020, or how long they've been vacant?
They've been vacant within the past year, as people, most of the individuals have indicated a desire to lease back the property for some period of time until they can secure other housing accommodations, and we've honored that. Two individuals have since moved on within the past year. We have 2 others that are currently on a month-to-month basis.
And what's the plan here? How long are we going to hold these things and wait to do RFPs? What's the time frame?
Well, we had held up to see if 376 and 2 other properties on the other side of 350 would become available. We have talked to the owners of the other properties that we had been considering, and they're not in a position right now to sell. So I think 376 is really what we've been waiting for, to see how this would shake out. With that, I think I have prepared a request for qualifications, proposals. We're ready to go, and as soon as we have the disposition of 376 ironed out, I intend to put that out to seek development partners and hopefully come back through the respective boards for a development agreement later this year, or 2023 rather.
So you're hoping to get something accomplished with which properties in 2023? Which plots exactly?
All 5.
All 5 of them?
Yes.
Okay, because you've got 2 people on month-to-month and the other 2 are empty.
Yes.
All right, and if that doesn't work out, at what point do you pull the plug on this and say, I'm putting it back on the market because the town's not going to carry it?
I think if we were not to find a successful development partner within the next 6 months or so, then I would say, you know, certainly by the end of 2023, we would do that. I don't expect that to be the case based on my conversations with a number of potential development partners.
All right, that's great. The first time this came around, I shared my concern that it didn't work out the first time we did it, and I'm happy to try again, but I just don't want to be holding on to all of this stuff, especially as the real estate market continues.
Nor do I, but I think, again, if the plan here is that this is, you know, deed-restricted affordable home ownership, so it's not really driven by, you know, market rates as much because we've set a cap on what we can sell these properties for. It is to some extent because obviously people still need to qualify for a mortgage, and as
Correct.
interest rates go up,
Yep.
it's more difficult.
All right, thank you. I just want to be on top of all of that, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative Iacono. Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 1. Mark, the 2 vacant parcels down there, are they currently habitable?
They are. They've been winterized, so we've drained the utilities, but we haven't done anything to. We certainly haven't moved ahead with demolishing the structures, anything like that, because we wanted to preserve the town's options.
Okay. What's the current balance in the trust fund?
If we put aside the reserve for this acquisition, we have currently a balance of, and I didn't run the numbers this past month, but it's about $350,000. You'll have a report as part of the Affordable Housing Committee's report next month, I hope.
And that $350,000 doesn't include what you're budgeting for this?
Correct.
Okay. I remember this last year when you were before us for another appropriation for Quincy Street or something down there. We approved a $2 million bond appropriation also. Now, has that appropriation ever been utilized and money placed in the trust fund, or whose decision is it to use the trust fund as opposed to the open appropriation we have?
We did not use the appropriation. So the plan would be to use proceeds from the Housing Trust Fund initially, unless there was an opportunity that came up. At some point, we would have to repay those funds, which I'm sensitive to concerns that are raised not just by this board but others. So we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that and that we can repay those funds. So we're currently just using the monies in the Housing Trust Fund, as the case may be.
So the appropriation you're keeping open in case we find a development partner, that's going to be your $2 million to?
No, I think initially we thought there might be an occasion where the monies available in the Housing Trust Fund wouldn't be sufficient should the opportunity present itself to acquire additional properties. We wanted to have the flexibility to do that without necessarily having the money in the bank, so to speak. We do expect to raise those monies over time as income has come in, but that the pace of when properties have become available has been such that we can pay for it out of the Housing Trust Fund directly without tapping basically a line of credit, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Basin. Representative McCormick.
Good evening, Karen McCormick, District 2. Not sure if this is an appropriate question for you, but given the level of development that's been proposed throughout the town, it's just come to mind, is there a maximum number of units that you are thinking about proposing there? In other words, I don't want to see this turn into a large apartment complex that could negatively impact the neighbors down there. So just a little concerned about, you know, this being 3 contiguous lots, looks like a fairly large parcel, probably could accommodate quite a few units. Just wondering if there's any maximum cap number of units in your mind that you're thinking about.
No, we agree. The Affordable Housing Committee agrees. We think that this site is most appropriate for a duplex, triplex type development. We think that's compatible with the existing neighborhood, and that would be the parameters by which we would put out for RFQ. We have talked, other nonprofit developers have pitched, apartment complex of some sort, but again, we don't think that's compatible with the existing neighborhood and development patterns in that area.
Thank you, Representative McCormick. Anybody else? Anybody on WebEx? You still with us? Ghosting us. Okay.
We're still here.
We wouldn't know. Okay.
Thank you,
Mr. Barnhart.
Thank you very much.
All right. Item number 4, Fairfield County Hazardous Incident Response Interlocal Agreement. Chief McCarthy is here with us. Come on up. Welcome. It's all yours.
Thank you. What you have before you is an agreement that was crafted by the attorney for the regional hazmat team.
You might want to pull that, just
Oh,
get it in there, yeah.
No. Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM, what you have before you is an agreement under state statute to constitute the regional hazmat team as a 501c3 nonprofit, the purpose of which is to allow the team to seek tax-exempt donations, grants, and enter into mutual aid agreement with non-governmental organizations. The organization has been in place since the 60s, when it was essentially a foam cache for the regional fire departments, formally constituted as the regional hazmat team in 1985, and has been operating that way since. The fire chiefs from the 14 towns that serve in the region and served by the regional hazmat team will serve as the board of directors, still responsible to their chief elected officials or boards and commissions, and follow all of the financial guidelines of the host community, which right now is the Westport Fire Department.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Oh, Representative Gerber, got one.
Yeah. Hey, Chief. Thanks for being here. Bill Gerber, District 2. I'm just curious, how many hazmat occurrence, issues have you had since you've been here? Is this sort of a occurrence every year? Or?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The way that the team is organized is we train 75, 80 hazardous materials technicians that are dispersed by departments throughout the region. They handle a majority of the hazmat calls within their own town. There is a 2-tiered response from the regional hazmat team. If they need some support, consultation on how to appropriately manage an incident, they will send a mini team to support that operation. And if the incident exceeds the capabilities of the host community or the community having the emergency, because each of us have a number of hazmat techs in our own department, so if we can handle it on our own, we will. We'll request first-tier response for technical support or a full-team response for a major incident. So there are a number of calls that we don't see as a regional team that are handled by individual communities and supported by our training and equipment. Regional hazmat team responds probably a half a dozen to a dozen calls a year.
If there's something involving a train or something on 95, like a truck, are you guys the first ones there, or is that the state? You stay off until the state gets there? Or?
We are the hazmat responders. We are supported by Department of Environmental and Energy, or DEEP, but we are the primary responder for all hazardous materials incidents in the region.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Representative Pastilli.
Sharon Pastilli, District 3. I wanted to follow on to what Representative Gerber just asked. So what are the parameters in terms of where Fairfield is responsible for responding to a hazardous waste situation as opposed to DEEP?
So we are responsible to, and Fairfield responds within the geographic confines of the town of Fairfield by mutual aid agreement for all of the other 13 towns in our region, which is essentially from Stratford to Greenwich and one town in. And we report all hazardous incidents, hazardous materials incidents due DEEP, and they make a determination whether to respond or not based on the quantity and other competing demands on their responders' time. But for all major incidents, it's a joint response, and in some cases involves the Coast Guard when it's essentially below I-95.
Thank you, Representative Pastilli. Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Thanks, Chief, for being here. Ed Bateson, District 1. I'm under the, I really didn't get into the details on this because I'm under the impression that this is already an existing agreement and basically you just revisited it to update it. It sounds like one of the only reasons you updated it was to make it into a 501(c)(3).
That's correct.
Okay, were there any other significant changes to the agreement?
No, there's not.
Okay, all the existing communities, nothing significantly changed, so the only change has been you made it into a nonprofit?
Yes, and for the reasons that I explained, it gives us the ability, and I would like to note that each of the communities supports financially to the amount of $3,500 a year to support the regional hazmat team. We have invested support and grant support from the state of Connecticut to purchase equipment without ever coming back to the municipality for additional funds for those major purchases. The regional hazmat team command vehicle, which you may have seen, is a big red box truck. And when we purchased it, it was almost $500,000. We maintain that without ever coming back to the community. And by establishing as a 501(c)(3), we'll be able to maintain that financial capability so that we're not leaning on the 14 towns to make those investments.
Okay. I just want to make clear, when you say we maintain that vehicle, you're saying the interlocal. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Representative Bateson. Representative Zesma.
Liz Zesma, District 4. Hi, Chief. Nice to see you. So this is more of an operational question. If a hazardous incident were intentional versus accidental and it required an investigation, first of all, that would be the purview of the fire marshals in the area involved, and then also do you work with law enforcement as would be pertinent to the incident?
In almost all cases of major spills, the Department of Environmental Protection comes in and conducts an investigation supported by local and state police. And that is how they are always approached. Certainly our local fire marshals, in partnership with the Detective Bureau from the Fairfield Police Department, are actively engaged as well as partners. State government, two organizations, state government, DEEP, and the state police, as well as local police and the fire marshal's office would all be involved.
Thanks. And my last question is, I did see mention of established fees for services. Can you just expand a little bit on what that would be?
So part of our organizational philosophy is when we can recover the cost of any response by billing a spiller, we do that. And so we assess any spiller, non-governmental spiller, for the cost of personnel and equipment and want to continue that. Also, if a non-governmental organization wanted to take advantage of the resources as a standby for a hazardous condition, that we would be able to establish a fee structure to provide that service to offset our costs, make a little bit of income in order to support the operation.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Josh Garskoff, District 5. Thank you, Chief. So to become a nonprofit, that allows you to charge those fees to the spiller, or are you able to do that now?
We're able to do that now under state regulation.
Okay, thank you. And I believe you're able to receive grants without being a nonprofit as well, correct?
We can receive grants from the state of Connecticut. We can't apply to FEMA for grants, and that was one because we don't have legal standing. So this will allow us to, there is a major source of funding through FEMA, and establishment as a nonprofit would allow us to apply for that.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Garskoff. Anybody else on the right? On the left, Representative Gerber.
Thank you. Bill Gerber, District 2. Chief, do you provide services to the universities? For example, like there's no like biohazard kind of stuff or any other?
So we respond to incidents at the universities, and our hazardous materials technicians were invaluable in the development of the hockey arena with its refrigeration equipment for the ice. So we relied on the hazardous materials expertise of several of our members in partnership with the Fire Marshal's Office to assess the hazard, develop an emergency plan and such, working with the university as well as the contractor for that venue. So their expertise has proved to be invaluable in those circumstances.
Thank you. Is that a fee for service thing, or is that?
No, that is really in support of the code enforcement effort of the Fire Marshal's Office.
Thank you, Representative Gerber. Anybody on WebEx? Okay, nobody else? We're going to let the chief go home? All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's hard to believe that this is the first time I've been in this room since February of 2020.
Oh, welcome back.
I think it's good to be back.
All right. Have a great holiday. Okay. Those of you on WebEx will need to dial into your committee meetings. Representative Iacono, you have some changes?
Why are you calling on me? Yes.
Well, I know we discussed this about 2 hours ago, but that's all right.
Representative Jarrell will now be on Public Works and Planning, and Representative Sparacino will now be on Education and Recreation.
Thank you. All right, we'll adjourn to our committees, and we'll see everybody next Monday night.